almost been a year since the January 6th Capitol insurrection. And since then, Trump supporters have gone through a very interesting transition. First, they started out being incredibly enthusiastic about it. And now they're at the point of where, did that actually happen? I mean, maybe it happened. Maybe it was the FBI or maybe it was Antifa. But it certainly wasn't us. No. So now Donie O'Sullivan, he's a reporter for CNN. He goes out there and he talks to Trump supporters, and he basically asked them, he's like, hey, January 6th, what do you think, right? Who did it? Who did it? Well, here are some of the answers.
I think the whole reporting of it is a giant hoax. We are very peaceful people. So it was a total setup. To me, it was the FBI had set it up. I don't believe that they were Trump supporters that did that.
You said the whole thing's a setup. You don't really believe that, do you?
I do. Because Trump won the election. They've proven it over and over again.
I think that it was set up, and I think that people didn't know what was happening, and I think that they went in there and they were caught in a trap, if you will.
You're suggesting that January 6th was a setup?
Yes, I am. Mm-hmm.
But you would acknowledge there was a lot of Trump supporters involved in the violence that day.
I didn't see any Trump supporters in the violence. I saw people that pretended to be Trump supporters.
I really don't think Trump had much to do with it than people that were supporters for him. Some were involved, but I think they were enticed by the FBI and by undercover agents.
It was the Democrats were behind it all. They're the ones that caused it all.
Do you really believe that?
I know it. And there is no way that a Republican would act that way. And there is no way that Trump had anything to do with what happened on January 6th.
Well, what about all the Trump supporters that have been charged and indicted?
Because it's all Democratic judges and people that were on the take from the Democrats.
Tell me you're in a cult without telling me you're in a cult. That's what cope looks like, folks. Holy shit. Wow. Pure, unmitigated copium. Again, this was like a couple weeks ago that they went out and interviewed these people. But no, and by the way, this is the kind of propaganda that you would find on none other than right-wing media. For example, Fox News. Fox News made a whole documentary claiming that, guess what? It was the FBI who, planned this. Yes, FBI agents went and incited the crowd to then go do this thing for Donald Trump. And then they said, aha, got him. We got him. You got what? You got nothing. Again, he did a whole documentary about this, and he cites as his evidence of some January 6 suspects that mention unindicted co-conspirators. Now, I know that sounds like super scary, but in legal terms, it basically just refers to suspects who haven't been charged yet. There's not evidence of undercover agents or informants. It's just people who are literally unindicted co-conspirators. I mean, it really is just amazing how, and by the way, this is Schrodinger's Democrat when you think about it. I mean, on the one hand, Democrats, they're the most hideous, insidious schemers in the world, and yet also can't run the government. That make any sense to you? Wait, if you're insidious planners and schemers and you're able to do all these things, then why also do they suck at running government? Again, Schrodinger's Democrat. Can't do anything right except for somehow plan everything against the Republicans and make them fail every single time. Again, none of this makes any sense, but it's all copium. It's all copium. They're getting high on their own supply. Now, Carlson, going back to his, claims about the FBI, he says, in potentially every single case, the unindicted co-conspirators were FBI operatives. But there's no evidence of that. None at all. None. And by the way, this goes further. Laura Ingraham said on her show that it was Antifa. Now, this was on January 6th. She said, there were likely not all Trump supporters, and there are some reports that Antifa sympathizers may have been sprinkled throughout the crowd. Senator Ron Johnson, and this goes beyond Fox News and even congressmen. Here's what Ron Johnson said. By and large, it was a peaceful protest, except for there were a number of people, basically agitators, that whipped the crowd and breached the Capitol. Representative Andrew Clyde, who was literally in the building when this had happened, said, oh no, these were just tourists. That's it. It's just tourists. Normal tourist visit. Really, was it? Again, that's in opposition to video showing Clyde barricading the house doors when he was inside to try to keep them out. Why are you trying to keep out the visitors, the tourists? If they're just tourists, why were you so afraid of them getting their hands on you? And so, again, that's the ironic about face that we have seen from not only congressmen, again, who were there, who feared for their own lives. These are Republican congressmen. But again, rioters that claim that it was, oh, it's the Democrats, it's Antifa, it's the FBI, it's them, whoever they are, and all of that. When originally, on January 6th, a lot of the Trump supporters were saying stuff like this.
Are you proud of what happened here today?
Absolutely. I think we should have gone on in and yanked our senators out by the hair of the head and drug them out and said, no more.
I'm absolutely stand behind 100% what happened here today. 1,000%. I think it's terrible how this election was stolen.
That's interesting. No, they know. They know it's old bullshit. They know that it was Trump supporters. Now, I'm not saying all Trump supporters did this or support this, but a lot of them did. A good chunk of them did. And those ones, they're embarrassed. And by the way, the only sense of embarrassment that they feel is the sense of embarrassment that they failed. They were not successful. This is cope. It's old cope. Now, you remember the last part of the first video that I showed you. That's Lisa, right? Her response, what? Well, of course, I know that it was Democrats. She was so openly aghast that even one could say that a Republican would actually do something violent like that. Like literally offended by the notion that any Trump supporter would be involved in this at all. I got news for you. There's a decent chunk of right-wingers that are violent. Right-wing groups, for example, are the leading perpetrators of domestic terrorist extremism. That's it. They've killed more people in the United States than jihadists since 9/11. And about a third of Republicans have openly agreed with the statement that violence may be necessary to, in their words, save the country. Or, I guess in reality, turn it into a right-wing dystopian hellscape. That same percentage of Americans overall believe that violence against the government is sometimes justified. Now, that's not good when you have a police state filled with heavy weaponry. That's going to be a lot of death. And a gigantic government crackdown on actual freedoms. So that's not a good thing. Now, that said, there's one bright spot in this video that I'm going to show you. One person, one Trump supporter that was interviewed actually does see the reality and admitted it. Take a look.
What do you think of the Trump supporters that stormed the Capitol?
Oh, my. You talk about misfound feelings. Seeing the folks from my side of the state that were there, and they're not the part of the campaign that we would like to have.
Do you think some Trump supporters that say it's Antifa, it's Black Lives Matter, that they know that that's bullshit, but they just don't want to admit it's easier to blame someone else?
Everyone is afraid to, you know, take the blame. It's that simple.
All right. Finally, that's what we're asking for here. Someone who actually sees the reality. Now, in this case, I don't care that she supports Donald Trump. I really don't. I really don't. I disagree with her political positions, greatly so. But at this point, it feels like I have to commend her for actually seeing the reality and is willing to say that, yeah, but they were wrong for what they did. And that, yes, they don't want to admit blame, or they don't want to admit fault or take any sort of blame. And that's not the kind of movement that we want. Now, the only thing that I can say in response to that really is that, look, hey, it may not be what you wanted personally, but it is what Donald Trump and a lot of his supporters did. And we're finding that out as the J6 Commission, the investigation continues. That's just a fact.